Welcome back to another video, and in today's video we are going to be going over how to actually lose fat and maintain your muscle. Okay, so this is a sequel to my lean bulking guide that I just put out, and it's pretty much the exact opposite: how to get shredded and maintain the muscle that you built in that phase. Okay, so it's like 6:46 in the morning, so I just woke up a little bit ago, probably like an hour ago. And I want to get this out to you guys today because I think it's very important to understand this process when you finish up your lean bulk and you want to go into your deficit phase. Okay, so this picture here on the left was April of 2025, and this was peak cut. Right here on the right, as you can see, vascularity was insane. We're super diced here. And this was October of 2025. Roughly a 6-month difference. And that's kind of the approach you have to take in order to maintain your muscle. Is you don't want to try and lose too much weight too quick. Okay, in order to maintain your muscle and get a more defined shredded look, you have to be okay with being patient. Okay, that is the golden rule for this process. Any piece of advice I can give, it is to string out and start early when you are in your deficit phase. Okay, so let's go over here. Cutting propaganda. Okay, we did this in the last video, but basically these are things that people think are the right way to go about it, and it's just not true. Okay, so number one on the list is just starve yourself. Not smart at all. Doing this, one, it's not sustainable. 2, you're gonna lose a lot of muscle. Okay, and 3, it's just not healthy overall. Okay, it's just extremely unhealthy to do this method, and it's often why a lot of people fail, because they just try to go into this, starvation mode. And what happens is they go from starving, right, to binging, and they just make this an endless loop that they can't get out of. Okay, and it's very, very unhealthy and not the method to actually get down to a low body fat percentage. Okay, so in this next one here, this ties in as well. An aggressive deficit, I would never really want to do an aggressive deficit unless you're a little bit higher in body fat. Like, I'm talking around 20% or higher. At the beginning of your cutting phase, you can maybe take it a little bit more aggressive, like anywhere from 500 to 1,000 calories deficit. And like I said, I would not be promoting this unless you're a little bit on the higher end of the body fat percentage spectrum, I guess. Even then, you don't want to be going anywhere above like 1,000 calories, in my opinion. It's not sustainable, like we said before, and you're gonna lose muscle. Just how it is. Low protein. Obviously, most people don't really think low protein, but they don't increase their protein from their lean bulk. Okay, so the reason we want to increase the protein instead of being like 1 gram per pound of body weight, closer to 1.5, is because when we're in a lean bulk, okay, or when we're bulking and growing, we have more carbs, and carbs are protein sparing. So when the carbs are lower in our depletion phase, we need more protein to hold on to more muscle and still maintain muscle protein synthesis, because in a deficit you start to use protein as energy often because your carbs are low. Okay, another thing here, no carbs. Now obviously they're going to be lower, and each week, in order to maintain progress, we might have to drop the carbs a little bit, right? But when you go fully keto, like I said before, it's going to result in low muscle mass. Okay, you're going to lose muscle because you can't lift effectively, you can't train and really push yourself and have the intensity to train to hold on to the muscle that you built up over the past 6 months, year, 2 years, however long you've been in your growth phase. And the last thing here is prioritizing cardio over training intensity. So making your cardio super high intensity instead of allocating more of that intensity and more of that energy, which is a limited resource in a cutting phase, to your training. Okay, because your training is the number one priority, because that is how you're going to maintain your muscle, which is, from all of these points here, one of the main reasons why we don't do these is so that we can maintain our muscle. Because in the end, if we just prioritize losing the scale weight, we're going to get flat, like this first cut here. You want to be zone 2 cardio, which is around 120 to 130 beats per minute. And this is like something you can do for an hour, right? 30 minutes without feeling too fatigued. Okay, because like I said, it can't be too intense, so that we can have our training intensity still be high. Okay, and I'm going to show you guys an example here of when I first did my cut for the very first time. okay? And I did these first couple of points here, and it resulted in a very flat, very depleted, not shredded look, okay? I'm gonna kind of show you a TikTok. I did a 3-week cut, and I lost 10 pounds in 3 weeks, okay? And as you can see, like, we just got pretty flat, and honestly, we didn't really lose as much body fat, okay? And so when you are in a deficit and you lose body fat and lose muscle simultaneously, you don't preserve that lean look, because if you're losing muscle and losing body fat, technically you're kind of staying the same ratio, if you know what I mean. If you're losing 1 pound of muscle a week and 1 pound of fat, your body fat's staying the same. So in reality, you're just smaller and the same body fat percentage. So it's like, what's the point? This was from my recent prep here. This was probably 10 weeks out, I would say. And I'm a little bit lighter here, and I look bigger and leaner than this first one. Now, obviously, I put on a little bit of muscle. This is when I started implementing a lot of the things I'm going to talk about in this video that were able to sustain this look, and eventually it got even crazier, deeper into prep. But yeah, let's go on to the next point here. So, the Smart Cut framework. Okay, we want to be in a modest deficit, anywhere from 300 to 500 calories. This is what I've seen to work out the best for me. And this deficit here is day to day. Okay, so across the week, it's going to be around like a 3,500 calorie deficit or so across 7 days, which is around a pound of fat. And then obviously, if it's like 300, it's going to be a little bit lower. And it really just depends on the length of your cut. Now, obviously, like I said previously, you want to have it as long as you can afford. Okay, so start as early as possible to maintain your timeline for whatever look you want to achieve by that certain date. This is what I've realized is the best range for that deficit. We want to be in higher protein, anywhere from 1 to 1.5 grams per pound. I think on prep I was eating 200 grams of protein a day, like something stupid like that, and that helped me preserve a lot more muscle mass instead of just staying at the 1 gram per pound of body weight kind of generic protein level. Okay, we also want sufficient carbs for training. Okay, so when I say this, your carbs are going to be lower, okay, but the biggest thing with this is putting your carbs around your training. Okay, so let's say you're training at 4 p.m. So anywhere from 2 p.m. to 6 p.m., you would want to put around 50% of your carbs of your entire day around this 4-hour window. You want 50% of your carbs. When you have 50% of your carbs around your training, more of it's going to glycogen, more of it's going to help to refill those glycogen storages so that you can maintain training intensity, maintain your muscle mass, and you're going to feel a lot better during your workouts as well, especially when carbs are low. So the timing is very, very, very important. Okay, so that's what I mean by the sufficient carbs for training. Obviously, they're going to be a little bit lower, right? You don't want to start out at 50 grams of carbs at the very beginning of your deficit. That's just stupid, right? I only got that low when I was in peak week, and we had like a 5-day depletion or something like that. Okay, carb timing and having enough carbs, especially in the earlier phases, is very, very important. Okay, another target here is 0.5 to 1 pound a week for fat loss. Okay, now you can afford a little bit more aggressive if you're higher in body fat percentage, because you can use more body fat as fuel, right? But if you're someone who is starting from a little bit leaner standpoint, you can go to around 0.5 pounds per week. Is a lot more affordable and a lot less aggressive. Okay, so it's more for those people who are really trying to maintain muscle and have a long time to do so. Another thing here is keeping our strength high. Okay, we want to keep our form as good as possible, our intensity as good as possible. It's going to be extremely hard mentally, right? But giving 100% of what we can on that day in our training is going to result in the best possible look, the best possible muscle preserved. Okay, and we need to keep our strength as high as we can. Obviously, it's going to drop off. You're going to lose a little bit of muscle regardless, especially as a natural during a deficit phase, but we want to be giving as much intensity to our training as possible to keep the strength high, to hold on to as much muscle. Building up our cardio. We don't want to start out on 2 hours of cardio a day. Absolutely stupid. Okay, and in the previous video, I had mentioned that even in our bulking phase, we're doing cardio. This could be a little bit better of a position, especially if you've been doing cardio on your bulk, but we want to start out at like 15 to 20 minutes for cardio. And then each week we can increase the cardio so that we can maintain a larger deficit so that we can eat more food. That's the whole reason of building up cardio. And I started at 30 minutes, but that's because this is for my prep. I started at 30 minutes because for the few months I was doing the deficit on my own, I was already doing 20 minutes of cardio. Okay. And by the end of prep, I was doing 70 minutes a day. But when I was at 70 minutes, my NEAT was significantly lower, which is your net exercise activity thermogenesis, which is anything that you burn calories with when you're not exercising, right? So when you're speaking, when you're fidgeting throughout the day, when you're, walking around, when you're like things like that, okay? This is significantly lower when you're when you're deep into your deficit, okay? So by having 70 minutes of cardio in these days, right, it can make up for that lost NEAT that can push us even more into a lower body fat percentage, okay? Okay, now the thing that most people always ask me is about our diet, okay? And these are going to be our goals here. Protein, 1 to 1.5 grams per pound of body weight. We want our fats at 0.3 to 0.5 grams per pound of body weight, and the carbs are going to be filled in with the rest of our calories, okay? Now, we're gonna start off with the protein sources here. We want to be as lean as possible, okay? So we can afford a little bit higher fat proteins when we're in our bulking phase, but in this scenario, we want to be as lean as possible. For most people, what that looks like is just a 93.7, right? So that can be ground beef, ground turkey, things like that. If you can afford it, which I think it often might be cheaper, but it's really hard to find, is 96.4. An even better option, even lower in fat, and it's mainly protein, right? So you can do the same thing with the ground beef, the ground turkey. Chicken breasts are absolutely huge because they're a lot more cheap, right? They're a lot more affordable. And the only thing that's the downside is I hate cooking chicken, okay? Because I kind of get scared if I undercook it. Chicken is going to be a big staple as well. Any kind of leaner cut steak, which usually is like a top sirloin or top roast, right? Something like that is going to be your best bet. Obviously, you don't want to be getting fillets when you're in a deficit. Higher fat content, it's just not smart, right? But any of these are very good. And then obviously the king of kings right here, the freaking whey protein. If your body can digest it well, I would definitely have this. There's a lot of different recipes. There's a lot of ways to manipulate texture, taste. There's a whey protein for every possible flavor out there right now. So if your body can digest whey well, I would definitely implement this into your diet as well as these other sources here. Another thing is white fish. A leaner fish is also very good. Things like tilapia, cod. Those are like the main two that I can think of that I usually implement. I like tilapia because it's not as fishy tasting, right? It tastes more like chicken in my opinion. So I would really put tilapia up there, and they are often pretty cheap as well for tilapia. Carbs, a big one here. What's going to be the majority of your diet alongside protein is we want to have things that are slightly more satiating, okay? Now, what I can recommend is any of like the carb smart options, right? So you can get like a keto bread, keto wraps, things like that. Then again, digestion comes into play. If you can't digest it well, it's maybe not the smartest option. Things like that you can implement. Those are just tools. I wouldn't make that the majority of your diet, but like I said previously, these are good things to implement if you are someone who really struggles with appetite, okay? And they also have high fiber, okay? And that helps with digestion a little bit as well. Keto bread choices, I'll just put that. And then now let's get into the real stuff, okay? So we want to make simple swaps for things that we eat on our bulk, okay? So instead of like jasmine rice, we'll do something more like basmati. This digests a little bit slower. It makes you feel a little bit more satiated. And in the long run, this can be more beneficial. So we want to do like basmati rice. Sweet potatoes, oh my goodness, these are goated, okay? Like literally goated, okay? You can make them sweet. You can make them savory. You can make them soft. You can make them crunchy. Whatever you want on that specific day, sweet potatoes are going to get you right. Plus, they're very satiating. They digest a little bit slower, obviously, than rice. So if you pre-workout, you're probably gonna want to do like basmati rice, and then post-workout, you're gonna want to do like sweet potatoes. That's just kind of two separate ways you can do carbs. And then we want to have our fruits. Now, these are a lot more easier digesting, right? But I like to have these either in the morning or at night, right? Because they kind of help with the sweet tooth craving, right? So mainly at night is a good way, but we want to have some kind of fruit or some kind of vegetable in every meal. Why? Because we need micronutrients. It's not only going to help with digestion, but it's going to help with our metabolism. It's going to help with how we feel. The vitamins are very, very crucial in the cutting phase because we don't have as much food as we normally do. So we want to make sure we're getting all of our vitamins in. And that was a reason why we're building up our cardio, so that we can eventually do 50 minutes of cardio, 60 minutes of cardio a day, so that we can keep our food at a higher level, right? Because when we have higher food, we get more nutrients, but since we're doing the cardio, we're still in a deficit, okay? Like I was saying previously, we wanna have fruits and vegetables in every meal, one or the other, for the micronutrients, for the fiber, etc., okay? And then fats here, you're gonna get a little bit of fat from these protein sources, right? But things like avocado, we can do like mixed nuts. Often I would do maybe more so like walnuts or almonds in this case. These are really good sources. I was doing peanut butter as well. Obviously, it's not going to be a whole lot of fats when you're on your deficit phase, right? They're going to be a little bit lower, but peanut butter is really good. Almond butter is really good. I didn't really find myself using a lot of oils like olive oil or coconut oil or things like that, just because by the time I had all my protein sources in, I had a lot of the fat content in for the day. Okay, so like I said, this is kind of your objective right here is 0.3 to 0.5 grams per pound. But yeah, these sources are very, very good. We're not going to have a whole lot of fats in the deficit, but things like avocado, peanut butter, almond butter, and I would usually like to do walnuts here instead of like mixed nuts. But that's kind of going to be your main fat sources, okay? And that's kind of how we're going to just do our diet. That's really it. It's very flexible, right? But we want to be smart to how we can hit our macros, okay? So you can make a lot of different meals with these ingredients right here. Like, it's very diverse. There's a lot of different, you can just go on TikTok or go on YouTube and look up meals that are very voluminous, low in calories, high in protein. They're all over the place, okay? So try to stick with mainly whole foods. One, it's gonna make the deficit a lot easier, right? Because you're not gonna stimulate yourself to things that kind of make you crave. Another thing that I want to say is stay away from like too many protein snacks, right? So people think that you can just do protein bars and protein muffins and whatever, right? Stay away from that as much as possible. One, they're not going to satiate you whatsoever. They're not going to. And when I did my first deficit, I was eating like 3 a day, and that's why I ended up like falling off in my diet, because I wasn't making meals that were voluminous with whole foods, and it just led to me falling off the plan and not feeling satiated, and they messed up my digestion. When you're doing a lot of the sugar alcohols and things like that, it's just going to mess you up, and at the end of the day, we don't really want that, okay? And then this is what I had brought up in my last video here, is how you're going to find your maintenance calories. You're going to import your age, gender, height, weight, activity, things like that. It's going to give you a number. Let's say it's 2,600 for maintenance, and you're going to subtract the 300 calories or the 500 calories depending on, you know, what you think you can manage. It's not going to be 100% accurate, right? So you might be on 2,300 calories doing your 30 minutes of cardio, and like you're losing 3 pounds a week, right? Not good. Not good at all. We want to increase a little bit, and maybe we'll do like 2,500 calories, right? We'll maybe up it. And same goes for if we're not losing weight. Sometimes we have to drop the calories even more and go from 2,300 to 2,100. So it really is a process, and you have to learn about your body and what variables are staying consistent and how you can either lower the calories or increase the cardio to maintain your goals. Next thing here, training basics. Not going to be going into like a full training in-depth video, but these are just some things that you need to keep in mind and you need to understand in order to make this fat loss phase as efficient as possible. Find the midpoint for rep count. Don't switch to light, like cutting workouts, okay? Don't bring the intensity down. Don't like just do lightweight, low weight, light reps, you know what I mean? You need to find a midpoint between like super low volume and super high volume, okay? Because you don't want to be super low volume, because in that when you have less volume, you're going to be burning a little bit less calories. So what I found is that if you do a little bit higher reps but maintain the strength, you will retain more muscle but burn more calories since you have increased volume by a little bit. Now, I'm not saying to go on the complete opposite of the spectrum, do like 3 sets of 20. No, don't do that. Okay, just increase your reps by a little bit and maybe add a set here or there. Progressive overload still matters, okay, especially at the beginning of your deficit. You can still gain strength at the beginning of your deficit phase, okay? This will not only set you up in the long run, but you might be able to squeeze out a little bit more muscle even at the beginning of your deficit, okay? So progressive overload still matters. And then when you get later into your deficit, like 4, 5, 6, 7 weeks, right, you're going to want to maintain the muscle as much as possible, right? If we're not slowly incrementing the weight, incrementing the reps, we want to be maintaining the weight and maintaining the reps. But I would put like anywhere from 5 to 15, okay? 15's a little bit on the higher end, but like I said, they're just kind of extra stimulating sets. And you're going to kind of take a look at your physique, what needs to be maintained more in the deficit, like where are your weak points and where are your strong points. Your strong points can afford a little bit less. Body parts that don't really need as much attention because they're not what you're focusing on for whatever you're competing in. If you're trying to compete, okay, that's for more like a prep standpoint. Another thing here, perfecting the form, perfecting the stimulus, okay? And this is another thing I talked about in my lean bulking. We want to make sure we're hitting the muscle correctly. I'll go back to my previous example of an incline press, and we're still doing a wide grip bench with the same path. It's just a bench press. It's not incline, okay? Even though we have the incline press, we're not actually hitting the upper chest. So we need to make sure that we're perfecting our movements so that we're actually targeting the muscle that we're trying to train effectively. A big thing for this is back. A lot of people, they think they're hitting their lats. In reality, they're not. They think they're hitting their traps and their upper back. In reality, they're not. We need to make sure that this is in play before we get deeper into our deficit, because we need to know if we're hitting the correct muscle groups correctly, okay? Especially on lower calories and lower food. That stimulus is so much more important, okay? Pumps don't build muscle, mechanical tension does. This is pretty much going back to the progressive overload and the like cutting workout thing. We don't just want to be getting a pump in the gym and thinking that's going to maintain our muscles. We need to keep the training intensity, the training weight as uniform, as consistent as possible, even though it's going to get hard later into our deficit, okay? And last point here, cardio is an assistant, not the main event. Like we had spoke previously here, the prioritizing cardio over training intensity. Cardio needs to be done either in the morning, I would say. Fasted is a really good way to get done, especially when you have a higher amount. I felt like that was more sustainable for me. Or after your workout. You don't want to be doing your cardio like an hour before your workout. Or make sure there's like a resting window between that. You get food in after your cardio in order to maintain that intensity for our training. When I say it's not the main event, we need to be zone 2. Nothing higher, nothing lower, except for when we're doing like walking. That might be a little bit lower than zone 2. And steps are very, very important as well. And these pictures here at the top, they're just ways to track your progressive overloading. This is tracked.gg. You can see your weight, your reps, whatever, and you can log it each week. Will help you keep the progressive overloading or the maintaining in mind. Same thing here, you can get a logbook or you can use your notes app. 3 things that work very, very well in a deficit phase. Cardio strategy, everyone's favorite topic. 5 to 6 times per week, nothing less, okay? 5 to 6 times per week is the golden standard, because when you do it more, it's going to get easier. Your cardiovascular system's going to get more conditioned, okay? So you can afford to do things like this machine right here. This machine right here is the GOAT of cardio, other than walking. Walking and Stairmaster are very good, but if you want the best zone 2 cardio, Stairmaster is your guy. 30 minutes of Stairmaster is significantly better than 30 minutes of incline walking. It just is. You're going to burn more calories, and overall, it's going to be better. And once you get really good at this, it's going to be extremely hard at the start. I was dying my first couple of sessions, okay? But once you get good at it and you start to get more conditioned, get to understand the machine more, it gets easier and you're burning way more calories in a short period of time. Stairmaster, like I said right here, GOAT, keep steps high, second GOAT. Okay, you can do these simultaneously. You can get high steps and Stairmaster. Ultimately, it's going to increase your deficit so you can have higher food, more macronutrients, more micronutrients as well. You're going to maintain more muscle. You're going to get shredded, and you're going to look absolutely sick. Okay? Not hit. Another thing here, not hit. We already talked about this. Don't be doing hit workouts in the deficit phase. Stupid. Absolutely stupid. And cardio should complement training, not replace it. Another topic as well that we had spoke on previously. It really gets pretty simple with the cardio strategy. Keep your steps high, get goated at the Stairmaster, and you're gonna be just dialed. Okay? Dialed. All right, recovery. Recovery is equal to muscle retention. We need to be sleeping 8 to 10 hours. We have to, okay? In a period where our energy levels are lower, our food is lower, we have higher cortisol, higher stress on the body, okay? We need to be sleeping. It's a non-negotiable. You want to lose fat, you want to maintain muscle, you need to sleep. That is how you're going to get shredded. Manage your stress as well. Walks, downtime, de-stressing periods, reading a book, sauna, hot tub, things like that. This is going to help lower your cortisol, make you feel better when you're in a deficit period, especially for a long time. It's very taxing on the body. Okay, your cortisol levels are going to be higher. You're going to feel pretty sore all the time, fatigue. So if we can maximize our recovery, we can get back in the gym and we can train and we can make more progress every single day. Okay, rest days are extremely productive. Okay, this is something that I learned on my prep. I used to hate rest days, almost wouldn't even take them. Days that you have off where you can completely just chill, get your meals in, chill on the couch, stay off your feet, things like that are very, very productive. If you can, and you're feeling like it, maybe go for light activity, light walking, maybe hit your step goal, things like that. But stay out of the gym, stay away from training. You need these days in order to progress further. And hydration. Oh my goodness, this is so, so important. Especially if you are doing the Stairmaster. Holy drawing. Wow. If you're doing the Stairmaster, you're going to be sweating like crazy on this boy. Okay? You will be sweating so bad. So hydration is very, very important. 2 to 3 liters is a little bit low. Okay. I would aim for maybe 4 to 5, but I put this here because that's the minimum. Okay. We want to be getting more like 4 to 5 liters, and we want to be having some kind of electrolyte supplement. Electrolyte. Things like the Ecovision brand, Element, even just pink salt, right? Like, that's very good as well. Make sure you're getting electrolytes in and make sure you're drinking enough water, especially if you're someone who sweats a lot. You're definitely going to need around 4 to 5 liters a day. Bare minimum is 2 to 3 though. Bare, like the lowest tier bare minimum. 2 things here that can help later in the deficit. I had struggled with sleeping, so I was starting to use melatonin a little bit. Don't want to abuse it for sure. This is goated. Magnesium glycinate. This worked better than melatonin did. It worked way better. It lowers your cortisol, but overall, my sleep was better. I felt like I recovered better, and I was a lot more relaxed at night. My mind started to, slow down a little bit because at night I tend to think a lot as well. And having that with the hunger and things like that, this is deep into prep. You're not going to be really like this if you're just normally cutting right to like 10% body fat. This was the go of supplements, helped me sleep so well. Additional supplement protocol, we already talked about this. Whey protein, creatine. Yes, even in your cut you want to have creatine. Okay, you need to. Electrolytes, standard for hydration. Caffeine, biggest thing about caffeine is don't abuse it, but abuse the timing. Okay, time it around your workout, 30 minutes before, an hour before. It will help you and it will progress you. But if you drink too much at like weird periods throughout the day, like from the time you wake up until like 5 p.m., it's gonna mess with your sleep. Your tolerance is gonna be very, very high, right? So it's not gonna be as effective. And then another thing here is greens powder. Okay, if you're someone who doesn't really like vegetables as much, greens powder is really good. You can plop it in your drink in the morning, drink it down, and then maybe have one like in the middle of the day as well. And then consistency plus mindset. This process takes time. This is even more crucial because people, they get into their deficit a little bit and they fall off because they don't think they're making enough progress, etc, blah blah blah, excuses. This is going to take time. Take the data that you get each week, stick to the system in place. We talked about this previously. Each week, if something starts to stall, assess what the problem is, okay, and change it. Either lower the food a little bit, increase the cardio a little bit. Don't do both at the same time. That's another thing. Do not do both at the same time. Either raise the cardio or either lower the food. I would suggest with raising the cardio first. Okay, always raise the cardio over lowering the food. And then tracking our metrics, scale, mirror, logbook, staying pretty standard. The mirror is way more important than the scale. We had talked about this previously. I don't know why I circled it like this. A little bit sus, but the mirror is a lot more trustworthy, because when you're looking in the mirror, you can see when the lines start to show up. You can see when you're either bloated or whatever. Like, the scale is a tool, but we want to be utilizing the mirror a lot more. And minor weekly changes is equal to major differences month to month. This is the most sustainable, most effective, best way to go about it. Okay, in order to make this happen, this took 6 months. Half of the year was spent on this transformation. Did I look crazy? Yes, I looked insane on the right. Did I look stupid on the left? Yes, I also looked stupid on the left. But in order to make this, trusted the plan, trusted my coach, and I trusted the systems that we had put into place, because I knew that I wasn't going to be where I wanted to be that quick. It took time. Okay? That's another thing as well. But that's pretty much it, man. Thank you guys for watching. I appreciate you guys tuning in, of course. And I really do hope that this video helps you progress in the future on your next cutting phase, and you really can make the transformation that you want to make. Okay, I also offer one-to-one fitness coaching. You can DM me on Instagram at RectoFit. You can DM me Rise if you're interested. These are some of my guys and some of my client transformations. But if you're interested in, getting mentored in your fitness, your mindset, and helping you staying consistent while having that accountability, you can DM my Instagram. But once again, thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and let me know what else you guys want to see in the future. Thank you for tuning in. Peace.